given the opportunity to rebuild your destroyed girlfriend, would you augment her breasts? Yes or no? You have to be honest.
You're still listening. This is our final transmission.
Oh, we're here, Sam.
Oh, we're here, Jamie. How's it going?
It's going well. It's final transmission. It's Thursday night when we're recording this. It's Monday, probably. When
Do you know where your wiener is?
Buried deep in a Frankenhooker, I guess.
Oh, good grief. Here we are. It's Sam Russo. It's Jamie Carruthers. It's final transmission. We're talking about one horror movie a week until the end of time, until the hills bleed and the dogs howl. Here we are. We're here.
Yeah. Dogs howl pretty frequently. So
At the hills bleeding? I don't think so, buddy. I'm trying out catchphrases, man. I'm spitballing.
Yeah. Uncle Larry says that's not the one.
Sorry, Larry. Listen, we're talking about Frankenhooker today.
Yeah, 1990, directed by New York's premier 42nd Street schlockmeister, Frank Henenlotter, who I presume you've seen at least one of his films before, Basket Case?
Yeah. In fact, I think, and this might be proved wrong at a later date, I think I've seen 3 Basket Case movies.
I mean, there are 3.
That makes sense then. I think I might have seen Brain Damage when I was too young to remember it.
Yeah?
But definitely seen Le Basket Case. Here's a chorizo chorizo question for you. Frankenhooker or Frankenhooker?
That's a great question to kick off the podcast. I say Frankenhooker. Emphasis on the Frank.
Have you heard other people say Frankenhooker?
I don't know if I have, but I wouldn't punch them in the face if I heard them say it.
I'm going to go with Frankenhooker.
Nobody says Frankenstein, right?
No one says Franks and Beans.
Exactly.
Good. Okay, so Frankenhooker was released astonishingly in 1990.
Yeah, we were 5 years old when this movie came out.
This doesn't feel like a movie that came out in 1990.
Well, I mean, we'll get into that, but I think that this looks like a movie.
You're already on thin ice, bud. Does it?
In the way that, like, Basket Case and Brain Damage look like the sort of unspooling nightmare of a man who just feels like he has to get something out in order to carry on living.
Yeah.
This feels like someone, specifically Frank Henenlotter, was like, I want to make a movie.
Feels or looks?
Both, but
okay.
But looks. I think it looks like a film that's had someone think about it before they did it.
Already with the high praise. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you discovered this movie, and then we'll move seamlessly into you synopsisizing it.
Okay. Well, I first came across Frankenhooker, who were obviously I think I was too young to fully appreciate it, but right. I had seen Basket Case. I had Brain Damage on VHS, and I used to watch it all the time, and I love it very, very much.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I don't want to talk too much about Brain Damage because I think one day we'll cover it, because I'd love to dig into that a bit more. Yeah. And so I think probably around 1998, 1999, I was going through and trying to complete the Frank Henenlotter set.
Right.
And that involved watching Frankenhooker, which, you know, isn't a huge sell for me because it's called Frankenhooker.
Yeah, it's not going to take a lot to get you to slap that in the slot and kick back.
Absolutely. The tagline, I remember seeing it. I mean, I know it, but I remember seeing it on the box of a terrifying tale of sluts and bolts. And like,
it's so perfect.
And yeah, like you can't fault the marketing of this movie.
Yeah, nothing in this movie comes together, obviously, the way the cover does. Yeah. The tagline, the color scheme, the picture, everything works so magically. I defy any person who grew up liking punk music to fucking look at this movie on a shelf and be like, nah, not for me.
Yeah,
It just
absolutely.
doesn't happen.
So around then, I would have probably picked it up on VHS, slammed it in, had a great time.
Yeah.
No shock to everybody listening, but I love Frankenhooker.
It's one of the best movie titles of all time. I'm going to go ahead and just say that immediately.
Yeah. You know that basically Frank Henenlotter was in a meeting with James Glickenhaus and was just, he'd run out of ideas and was like, Frankenhooker. And he was like, yes,
Monkey tennis.
Here's $1.5 million.
So good. Massive Partridge moment there. Love it.
Yeah.
I think we can all relate to being in that position. Not all of us walked away from those meetings with $1.5 million and a great idea. But it happens to the right people, I think. And this movie coming together in that way, obviously, is perfect.
Yeah. I think there are going to be lots of double entendres in this.
Don't you mean double entendre? Jamie, you French fuck. Look at you in your stripy shirt and your beret.
It's not a beret, it's just a beanie.
A beanie.
I do have a string of onions around my neck, though. So
yes, you do. Yeah,
and
you
are
kneading bread for a baguette.
Yeah, poking out of my backpack as I record this on a bike, which is weird, isn't it?
Poking out your back passage, baguette up your ass, ready to podcast. I like it when you come prepared. Obviously.
If you don't come prepared, you're not prepared to come. That's what I say.
Fucking hell. There's our Final Transmission t-shirt sorted, finally. So, that's how Jamie found Frankenhooker. Here's a huge surprise for everyone in the audience. I discovered it because Jamie told me to watch it for the podcast.
Yeah.
Not a long story.
But you had, like you say, you'd seen Bad Taste, not Bad Taste, Brain Damage, and...
Unfortunately, I'd also seen Bad Taste. Yeah.
Well...
I don't know why this had never... even been recommended to me by another human or just popped up or never saw it on a shelf, just was not part of my movie world for some reason, just didn't know it existed till I saw it written down on this list and was like, what the fuck, there's a movie called Frankenhooker and I've never heard of it. That's incredible.
But you've seen the poster, right? It's got a quote from Bill Murray on it.
I don't think I'd seen it until this point.
Bill Murray says if you see one movie this year, it should be
Frankenhooker.
Yeah. And that's true of every year, I think.
Also, quite possibly the highest praise imaginable. Can you think of someone else saying that exact quote and you being more like, well, fuck me, I'm going to do that, obviously?
I don't know, there's...
As far as ringing endorsements go, what else have you ever seen Bill Murray endorse? Doesn't even fucking do publicity for his own films.
Apparently, according to Frank Henenlotter, like the studio or whatever were going after Bill Murray pretty hard to get him to do this quote, and Frank Henenlotter was like dead against it.
Really?
Not dead against it, but he was just like, I don't want to chase down some famous guy to give me a quote. And they met. Chasing Bill Murray is 100% the thing, right? Famously, just has an answer machine still, and you can't talk to him. He either shows up at your party without you inviting him, or you have to chase him for 100 years to get him to say one thing. Do you think Bill Murray actually watched this movie, or do you think he just gave him the quote? No, yeah, he was. So what happened was, so Frank Henenlotter crossed paths with Bill Murray, and Bill Murray was like, "Oh, I hear you want a quote for your movie," and Frank was like, "Absolutely not. Don't worry about it, mate." And he was like, "Cool, I'll do it."
Oh, brilliant! Perfect, Bill. Bill, friend of the pod. I can't see. There's a few things that I would love to have seen in this movie. One of them is probably Bill Murray in a starring role.
There's a bit in the commentary where Frank Henenlotter says, "Oh, Bill Murray found this bit really funny when we watched it." So I guess they watched it together in a cinema or something, in a screening room.
Fucking amazing. Oh boy. The year is 1990. What is Bill Murray doing?
So obviously Ghostbusters 2 was around the time that this was in production, I would say. It's Caddyshack is around then, late 80s? What about Bob and Quick Change and all that stuff?
Well, you'll be pleased to know Quick Change is 1990.
Yeah.
100% bang on the money. What about Bob is 91. Groundhog Day is 93. So he's still pre-Groundhog Day, very much post-Scrooged.
Yeah, post-Busters.
Yeah, Ghostbusters is 84.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Ghostbusters was a pretty huge break, obviously. Caddyshack, Meatballs, all that stuff. But he's still ahead of a lot of big movies. It's not inconceivable that he would have, dipped his wig in something like this.
Yeah, and I also think the look of this movie, Frankenhooker, is very similar to the look of Quick Change.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking close, right?
Yeah. I love Quick Change. That might be one of my favorite Murray movies.
Murray Madness.
Yeah, I know
That's
that you're
not a good film. It's got Randy Quaid in it.
Yeah, I'm a fucking deep cut contrarian douchebag. So, like, yeah, I love What About Bob?
I hear you. No argument here. You absolutely are.
Thanks, mate. Quick Change and Shakes the Clown. Obviously, only one of them has Bill Murray in it. But they were so important to me as a young person that didn't really understand what those films were about. And also, that's it really. I also inexplicably had a VHS that was The Man Who Knew Too Little. Have you seen that?
Yeah, classic.
Nobody ever mentions it. It's awful, but I love it.
Yeah, it's a bit of I lump it in with like Fletch. If I'm going to watch those kind of movies, it's always that and Fletch.
That's insane. Fletch is one of the greatest movies ever made. I love Fletch. Is really funny. So much. Have you read the books?
No, I haven't read the books about Fletch or of Fletch. What the fuck are you talking about? So the novelizations?
No, the Fletch is based on a book.
Oh, good grief. No, I haven't read the book. Is it good?
Yeah.
Really?
The first one's great. They diminishing returns from there.
Are they funny?
Yeah, they're hilarious.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
Really funny books. I'll send you Fletch. I got it from do you know they have those little take a book, leave a book libraries?
Yeah.
Well, I found it in one of those in Florida.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, fuck yeah, Fletch. Love Fletch.
What did you leave?
My dignity. It's weird watching Fletch and not hearing that score.
It's so hard to separate a movie from a movie book, isn't it? In every way. I've ruined No Country for Old Men for myself by watching the movie. Impossible.
They made a Fletch film recently with John Hamm as Fletch.
Oh, good Lord. Why is any of this happening?
I know. They were trying to make... Kevin Smith was trying to make a Fletch film with Jason Lee as Fletch for a long time.
Possibly even worse.
Yeah. Jason Lee, great skateboarder.
Yeah.
Amazing Scientologist. Pretty bad actor.
Also not even a Scientologist anymore.
I know, but that...
Oh, no, I'm not giving him a pass. I'm just saying, what a letdown. Commit to the bit, bud. He was on the 9 Club recently. He's been on it a couple of times, and he's a little bit of a rough hang. He's very intense. He's very full on. There's not a lot there to like. No, that's mean. There's something in the way of really liking Jason Lee. I think that's what I mean.
Yeah. Okay. Do you know who else is really intense that isn't related to Frankenhooker, but is sort of related to Jason Lee? Rodney Mullen.
Rodney Mullen is a whole different kind of intense. Holy shit. You know what's a fucking intensely rough hang on Instagram? Steve Caballero. So much religion. Moving swiftly on. Let's talk more about Frankenhooker and a little bit less about Jason Lee.
Okay. Well, Frankenhooker stars Rodney Mullen's sister, Patsy Mullen. I don't think they're actually related.
Great segue.
As Elizabeth, who is dating friend of the pod, James Lawrence. That was a weird
Is he a friend of the pod? I haven't heard from him recently.
Well, he was great in Street Trash, and he's also in Frankenhooker.
So listen, don't hate me for this. I've only watched Street Trash once. Is he the doorman kid in Street Trash? Yeah, okay, right, brilliant. He is fucking superb in that.
Yeah. He's got a shtick, and this film expands on that shtick, I would say.
Somewhat, yeah. Do you think this is in the same movie universe? Does he go on to be that doorman from Frankenhooker?
I think it would be the other way around.
Chronologically, right, okay.
Yeah.
So, fucking hell, that's a slightly harder sell, but I'm into it.
So, Elizabeth, Patty Mullen, is going out with amateur surgeon
/ electrical engineer.
Yeah. And he makes her dad a special remote-controlled lawnmower for his birthday.
Thoughtful.
Very thoughtful, which Elizabeth accidentally runs herself over with, chopping her into many, many pieces.
Can I quote the movie? Chopping her into tossed human salad that was once named Elizabeth.
That's not even quoting the movie. That's quoting the news report within the movie, which is even
so
funnier.
good.
Jeffrey takes this pretty hard. They were due to be married, and parts of her body go missing. He wants to recreate her as the perfect woman because, you know, she was fat or whatever. The movie wants you to think that she was fat.
I'm sure we'll dig into this later, but it's so hilarious. They try and sell her as a bigger woman.
Yeah, it is. It really is. So in order to find these perfect woman parts, Jeffrey goes to Times Square and meets several sex workers who, through some fault of his own, ingest quite a lot of what is known as super crack, and then all explode. And then he uses those parts to build the titular, who are obviously Frankenhooker.
I mean, when you say it like that, it all sounds so reasonable. It's exactly what you do. It's exactly what I do. He even thinks at first, like, maybe I'll abduct a load of stewardesses. No, that's ridiculous. I'll go and get a load of hookers.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to steal people. You want to buy people.
Exactly. The message of Frankenhooker is don't steal people, buy them.
Yeah, that's not the message. The message, so I think, is don't do crack.
Maybe don't do super crack.
Yeah, I mean there is some fucked up morality at play here, but it's still
none of which I give a shit about.
No, it's still technically morality.
Yeah, it's still on the spectrum.
Yeah. So with that synopsis, Sam, let's take a break and come back and talk more spoilers because I've already done some spoilers, but it doesn't matter. It's fucking Frankenhooker.
Yeah, the clue's in the title. Let's take a break, come back and ruin it for everyone.
Yeah.
Whoa, holy shit. I guess that's why they call it phantom power.
Oh, we're back.
We're back, Sam, and I want to take this opportunity to say this podcast, Final Transmission, is brought to you by Red Scare Industries, a punk rock label who are celebrating 20 years of being a punk rock label this year.
20 years of dreaming and scheming. We're going to Vegas. We're taking over the Punk Rock Museum. We're putting out a comp. We're playing a bunch of shows, having a bunch of parties. Get involved. Go to redscare.net and register your interest in our upcoming festivities.
Yeah, I'm sad that I won't be able to attend the Las Vegas stuff. I noticed that, and this is separate, but if it helps get people through the door, then, you know. But obviously, you and a bunch of other Red Scare folks are going to be doing tours with Brendan Kelly. But at the same time, Keith Morris is also going to be there doing tours.
There's not an overlap, is there? I thought he was the next week.
It's the same dates.
Shut up. Are you fucking serious?
I'll check again, but...
Oh my... The only human being on Earth I've ever written a fan letter to. I would eat my own legs to have a guided tour of the Punk Rock Museum from Keith Morris. Can you even imagine how awkward it would be? Oh, I would thrive.
Yeah, it is the same dates.
Fucking hell, Jay. We need another break. Fan me. So, rub some brandy on me.
Sam is swooning.
Holy fucking Jesus. I met him at Brack Rock a couple of years ago, and I'm not going to reenact it because you probably end up cutting this out anyway, but he walked past me and I went, oh, hi, Keith. And he went, right on, and got right in my face. It was so good.
I hope he remembers you.
Very likely. Keith doesn't meet a lot of people, you know. Yeah. It's not like he gets out much.
It's an insular life.
Holy shit. Friend Keith of the Morris. Pod, Keith Morris.
Yeah.
Wow. Wowie wow. Gonna really struggle to focus on the rest of this episode. Thanks for filling me in there. I just looked at the fucking thing and assumed it was after.
No, it's the 27th to the 29th. It's the same dates.
Oh my God. Dreams can come true. Humma-numma-nana, Frankenhooker. Wow.
Yeah, so go to redscare.net and book tickets to go do some tours of the Punk Rock Museum in Las Vegas with Keith Morris. Sam will be there as well, coming.
Obviously. Wow.
Okay, so Frankenhooker, Sam.
Yep.
Never meet your heroes. That's what they say. But
Yeah, fucking A, right.
so obviously you were, as always, pretty close-lipped about your thoughts on Frankenhooker. So I am yet to know if you loved this, which you obviously did because it's fucking great, or if you're some sort of prude mutant from the planet Nobhead.
Prude mutant from the planet Nobhead. Do you know what? I'm probably from a star somewhere in that system because Frankenhooker for me was a wild ride and a mixed bag. So I can't say I loved it. I had a lot of fun. That's fucking guaranteed. But I was left fairly frequently with a desire for more. But, holy shit, let's talk about the good stuff. The movie opens spectacularly on a guy just fucking around with a brain with an eyeball in the middle of it at the dinner table, like it's normal.
Yeah, and it's even funnier that it's his girlfriend's parents' house.
Like a birthday barbecue.
Yeah, rather than like his own weird lab that he's built in his garage.
Yeah, so pretty early statement of intent tonally there. I think the brain looks like shit.
Yeah.
It's got an eyeball dead center. He's trying to get it to follow his hand. He's just like randomly poking electrical components until it like sparks and breaks. And I think that's a strong opening.
Yeah, I really love there that like when he's like, yes, that's it, follow my hand, he starts moving his hand to follow the eye.
Yeah. And it's nowhere near lining up.
It's just really funny.
It's great.
You have to really buy into James Lawrence because this movie is 98% him talking to himself.
Yeah, and I think if you love him with a big L, you love this movie instantaneously. I think if you find him a little bit harder to watch, like some people obviously do, then it's not quite as immediate, but there's definitely, a creeping mold-like fungal growth.
It will shock you to find out, love him.
Thought you might.
It's like he's got a big button that just says, make Jamie laugh. And every 2 seconds, he just hammers it with glee in his eyes. He's so funny to me.
That button must have like a sub switch that just says like mumble and Jamie will laugh, because that seems to be pretty central to the shtick. That being said, he's nowhere near as like greasy and unlikable in this movie as I think some people maybe find him. I think he's pretty endearing in this in a lot of scenes. His shtick like develops, I think, and he has real hot minutes where there's like a whole minute of him being really funny, which is great. I don't think it ever falls flat. I don't think he ever does anything in the movie where you're just like, oh, fucking get on with it. Like,
I think, like, obviously the character is doing some pretty heinous stuff.
And
the idea that even some of the audience don't hate him, and not in like that Walter White, Tony Soprano sort of way, but in like, we genuinely think he's funny and we want to see him build his Frankenhooker.
Yeah, I'm 100% behind him the whole time. And I don't get bored of him really. I think it's it's an interesting performance because he's obviously a character actor. Like you said, he has a gear and he sits in that gear and it's quite a comfortable gear for most of the time. But it's, I admire it because it's quite a laid back place to be as an actor. I think he doesn't overact. You could never accuse him of overacting, I don't think. But he also isn't a bad actor, so he's not underacting. He's kind of in the right place for the role and for the thing that he's trying to do and that he does well.
I think so. He took an 18-year sabbatical from acting,
right,
to like raise his daughters or whatever.
Let me guess, came back exactly the same.
Yeah, he's older.
Yeah,
but he's the same guy completely.
Yeah.
He just looks, like a much older man.
Yeah, I think. So, I mean, yeah, the whole opening of the movie is strong. The movie has very strong points and some pretty profound lulls, in my opinion. But the early part of the movie is so fun and tells you so much about what's coming. The part where they first introduce Patty Mullen on screen and they're trying to make her look, chunky, I guess, is so dumb. In the news report about her death, they used the word girthful.
Yeah.
My first note when I realized I needed to make notes on this movie, I just wrote the word girthful ?
Yeah, it's so funny that the movie wants us to think she's fat.
Yeah.
Like, she looks I mean, even when she's meant to be fat, like her waist is super cinched in, so she just sort of looks like perfect ratio or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
It's not even a good attempt at making someone look bigger. Like, pad her out, stuff some pillows in there or something. No, they just like put her in a jumpsuit, like you said, with a tightly cinched waist. She looks hot as shit. Like, what's going on?
It's like, oh no, this Playboy Playmate of the Year has childbearing hips.
Yeah, she's really eating too many pretzels. That's oh god, how delicious do those pretzels look as well?
Yeah, every pretzel in this movie.
Yeah,
I would still eat them today.
they just don't make them like they used to. Here's a really important point I should have made earlier. I again desperately wish I could have watched this on VHS on a shitty old TV, because just watching it on a big crystal clear HD TV sapped quite a lot of the joy out of it, to be honest. And I was, luckily I can recognize that and I can be like, wow, on VHS, like grainy as fuck, this would have looked amazing. So I think I need to revisit on VHS. But, the death scene, the whole party scene, all that stuff was fucking hilarious to me. Yeah, and when he's... There's so much good dialogue. The first moment I realized the movie was going to be really funny, like throughout, and it wasn't just going to be a few funny bits at the start, is when he does the huge monologue about spiraling into the black void and not knowing if he's slowly losing his mind, and his mum listens to him the whole way through and then offers him a sandwich.
Yeah. His mum, I don't know if you are aware, but she's like a really famous actor. What's her name? Louise Lasser. On set would just tell James Lawrence stories about what Woody Allen's like in bed.
Oh my god. Amazing. What is she to Woody then? Like second cousin?
Yeah, daughter, I don't know.
Yeah. Jeez, that's crazy. I knew there had to be some pedigree in the movie. So she was great. She was really funny. But that was when I thought, like, okay, this isn't just going to be like the peak horror in the movie isn't going to be punctuated with a little bit of comedy. This is basically a comedy.
Yeah, no, it's a comedy that's set in a horror situation.
Yeah.
Because there's, besides the blood on the gnome in the original, in the sort of inciting accident, and then a shot of some blood on the lawnmower in the news report, there is no other gore in this movie at all.
Well, the blown up bodies and the mutant hooker monsters and the limbs and the punched off head
but there's no blood.
No, no spraying fountains of blood or whatever, yeah.
Or any blood at all, really.
True, yeah, there's no blood when the head gets punched off.
Just nonsense. Just silly violence.
Yeah, there's no blood when the head gets macheted off either. That's interesting. I hadn't even thought about that, yeah.
And when the sex worker shaped mannequins explode.
Yeah.
No blood there.
No. But lots of smoke bombs and the occasional firework.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you want to go chronologically, but if we just sort of talk about that scene now, it's so funny.
It is fucking hilarious. At first, I was really on the fence when that shit started happening, because I was like, if the effects here are really good, it's going to be amazing. A whole brothel full of hookers on super crack exploding. This has the potential to be one of the all-time greats. And then they're a little bit jank, but that made it funnier. So it wasn't cooler, but it was funnier.
Yeah, well, they made it look like that on purpose because they knew that they couldn't make it look actually good.
Yeah, like it screams that to me. It does not seem like an earnest attempt at an exploding hooker. It seems like a mannequin packed with fireworks and smoke bombs.
Yeah,
which is what it is.
I love that. Obviously, the effects are posed in a specific way, so you have to watch the actors contort themselves into these poses in order to be able to explode.
Totally unnatural positions for what's happening. Like the one that is crawling on all fours is really jarring, but the one where the woman just has to turn her head slightly in a coquettish pose before her fucking neck explodes is really funny.
That's the best edit as well.
Yeah,
she nails that pose, and so the edit really works. Some of them, it's quite jarring.
Yeah. The only problem I had, obviously I'm watching this in the spirit of basically pure comedy. The only problem I had is that when he's grabbing the limbs and doing stuff like that, I just think they could have done some good Foley there, because it just sounds like polystyrene and stuff, and it just kind of ruins that hilarity for me. But
you mean when he's checking them out before they explode, or when he's picking them
just
up
after when he's
explode?
picking he's picking up the limbs and stuff? It's like sounds like latex and polystyrene and stuff. But I love his dialogue in that scene where he screams, "She's gonna blow," and like there's so much good stuff there.
Also, like the scene preceding that, where he's just sort of checking them all out and using like calipers on their thighs and stuff. And obviously, there's my favorite moment in that is where it just is a magnifying glass over a nipple for far, far too long,
and a little boop, boop on the nip.
Yeah, good buoyancy.
Yeah, my two favorite lines from that are "good buoyancy" and "gout free." But again, it's the delivery. It's so dry and like tight-lipped and serious. It's very well done. And he's doing a big like check mark on a butt cheek and stuff.
I love that pays off later as well. Like
exactly. Like that's not the kind of thing you expect them to have the attention to detail to then bring back, but they do, and that's really, really clever.
Like he checkmarked that book because he liked it. He thought that was the one. So obviously that's the one he's going to use.
It became the one, exactly. I mean, in a similar vein to that, I really enjoyed him drilling his own brain to come up with ideas. I like that there's no build up to that. It's just he grabs a drill and starts, drilling holes into his head to try and stimulate creative thinking. I think that's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, there is very little in this film that I can find wrong.
Yeah.
So, but that's a peak for me. Just like the retracting drill blade, it's just it's always going to work. Retracting knife, retracting drill bit, always going to work for me.
Anything that looks like it's puncturing something but isn't, always great. No blood, interestingly, again.
Yeah.
I like the invention of super crack as well. It's kind of glossed over. He just, he logically like sees that all these hookers are addicted to crack, and he's like, I can make some crack, and he accidentally makes crack that blows up a fucking guinea pig, and then subsequently blows up a load of hookers. But I love that while he's helping the guinea pig smoke crack, he's like talking dirty to it.
Like the little pillow talk is
yeah,
so good.
If you weren't a guinea pig, what I wouldn't do to you. That kind of is so funny. I mean, you probably know, like, how much of this is improv, do you think? How much of this is ad-libbed?
So on set, like in the actual filming, there was no improv at all.
Right.
But as they were rehearsing, James Lawrence would improv quite a lot of stuff, and he would be like, yeah, cool, let's keep that.
Nice.
So they sort of built it based around improv, but a lot of that stuff, a lot of stuff that you wouldn't expect is in the original script.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not to just like bang through everything that's cool about the movie, but that's kind of what I want to do here. The lightning and electricity effects in this movie, top tier.
I wrote down animated lightning, your favorite, because I write my notes as if I'm talking to you.
100%. It is my favorite, and it happens a lot, and it's really well done in this. And I have to absolutely tip my hat to it and say, yes, it reminded me of everything I love about animated lightning. I thought it was brilliant. Yeah,
the scene where he's like doing the creation and she's on the bed and like it lifts out and it goes far too fucking high, and that's hilarious. Like when the lightning's hitting her and the thing and it's all like lit up, like that's all like hand drawn on the like on the frames.
Yeah, it looks really cool.
So good. Really
good. And it kind of made me realize, because I don't know anything about how movies are made, it made me realize, oh, this must be a really cheap effect if it's in this movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't know that. I could have been making that effect at home all this time. We have cheap lightning effects at home, Sam. So, yeah, really enjoyed that. And genuinely, anytime that happens, I'm sucked into the movie a little bit more. So I enjoyed that. The POV shot of the leg flying across the room during the hooker explosion scene, just to revisit that briefly, tremendous fun.
Yeah.
No notes.
You can't fault that. And the head flying and knocking out Zorro.
With a fucking woodblock sound. So good.
So good.
I mean, good, but terrible.
Well,
like, just to qualify for anyone listening, it's terrible. But that's why it's so good.
Yeah, obviously. Well, Frank Henenlotter didn't set out to make Schindler's List.
No.
He didn't make...
That's why there's train horn sounds when steam comes out of people's ears.
This isn't Frankenschindler. This is Frankenhooker.
Frankenschindler. Jesus, it could have easily been that if he'd been in a different mood in that pitch meeting.
Yeah.
Have you got anything else for me? Oh, Frankenschindler? Yep, go now, do it. We wouldn't be laughing as much right now. Well, you might. It is worth noting that it is 56 minutes into this movie that Frankenhooks we don't get Frankenhooker on screen for 56 minutes. And normally for me, that is some serious death knell shit.
Yeah.
You know, if Jason's not showing up for 56 minutes, ouch. If, you know, he's not in Manhattan for 117 minutes, death of a movie. But it doesn't affect this. It just, yeah, I know, I'm just so angry about Jason Takes Manhattan today. I'm sorry. It doesn't fuck with the pacing. It's actually quite well done. You want that to happen for so long, so badly, that when it does, it's a genuine payoff.
Yeah, well, it's not like, you know, Freddy's Dead, where you're waiting for Freddy to do stuff. The movie is about creating the Frankenhooker, so you have to go through that, you know, that journey, Sam.
And it is a journey.
Yeah, Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. But yeah.
Yeah, he actually does have an adventure to get to this point. And that's why it hooks you in, is because it's not just schlock, and it's not just stupid fucking set pieces for dumb jokes. There is an actual, like, story there. You know, he goes through a lot of rationalization as to how he's going to make this happen. And while you know the movie's called Frankenhooker and you know what's going to happen, it doesn't feel perfunctory. It actually does take you through a hero's journey of sorts.
Yeah. How do you feel about the rationalization that he gives himself, that these hookers are killing themselves with crack anyway, so why don't I just speed up the process?
Fits perfectly with him and the narrative of the movie. I can't say it's necessarily an Occam's razor-esque logic train that I would follow, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, like, they don't have to smoke the super crack. He's just going to leave it on the table.
Any crack.
Yeah,
exactly. He just has it in his bag. He even tells them not to.
Yeah, well, it's for the winner. Is what he says.
For the winner, gigantic bag of super crack for the winner of the hooker contest.
It's so
good movie.
Yeah, them trying to put the giant rocks of super crack into the tiny little crack vials.
So funny. Again, another comedic highlight. That was deftly presented humor. So Patty Mullen's absent for a huge chunk of the movie, obviously, because she is munched by a lawnmower and turned into a tossed salad. But when she comes back, like I said, it's kind of a big deal, right?
Yeah, and I think it's hilarious. She is so funny.
She totally sells it, and she looks great.
She looks amazing. Like the effects of, like, her looking stitched are pretty good for a movie where it was mannequins full of fireworks 10 minutes ago. In the scene where he's like doing the It's Alive stuff.
Yeah.
They had used all of their effects budget making the hookers explode.
Right. So
in that scene, they basically had to cobble together. Frank Henenlotter had an argument with the production crew, the production team, and was like, "Okay, don't come to set tomorrow. I'm having unlicensed pyrotechnics."
Amazing.
And so there's like a welder, like, off screen, like, creating all the sparks that you see, like, flying down. And it's just, like, I love, obviously, the punk rock spirit of, like, filmmaking in, like, low budget horror and horror adjacent community is something that really, really speaks to me. And Frank Henenlotter is, like, a real, like, beating heart spirit of that. Like, he just really nails it for me in terms of, like, you know, these people have given you $1.5 million. And okay, that's maybe not enough for you to do all of the effects that you want to do. So, you know, don't come to set tomorrow, because if you do, someone will probably die.
It's quite a statement. And I think $1.5 million is a lot of money, and was in 1990. And to just take that money and be like, do you know what I'm going to do with this? I'm basically going to waste it. I think that's really funny. There must have been so many moments in this movie where somebody said, "This looks like shit, Frank. What the fuck?" And he was just like, "I know." I know. I respect that attitude.
I have a question for you, Sam. Did you see the little collages that he makes and shows to the severed head of his fiancée? And
yes, I did.
Those are the sort of collages that I would like to make.
Those are the sort of collages that I do make.
Well, that's what I thought. I wondered if there was some correlation there.
As a burgeoning collage artist, yes, those are the kind of collages I make on a regular basis. I have an ongoing project right now where I just use the same issue of Playboy from 2002 for like my basis, my beginning point. So obviously a lot of my collages look like that.
A really funny thing in that scene is 50% of the framed photos behind him are just of her severed head.
Severed head. And you can tell before you even know that it's her severed head because it's just her severed head. And all the others are like candid family photos and like vacation pictures. But why? There's so many of them. He's just got like 6 pictures of her severed head in his bedroom.
It's just really good joke telling, attention to detail. And like, you don't need to do that.
No. And you probably couldn't even fucking see it on a shitty old VHS.
Yeah.
Like in many ways, that's a benefit. I mean, talking about Patty Mullen playing Frankenhooker, Elizabeth, I thought the gurning was going to really bum me out and get old. She does it a couple of times and you're like, okay, that's kind of funny. But also, like, initially, and again, I really had to stop myself trying to find logic in this movie. She's reciting dialogue that was spoken by the hookers that exploded that were then chopped up and stitched to make her. And I was like, her brain is her brain. What's happening here? And I read too much into the logic. And then it's all explained later, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think the logic leap that I struggled with in Frankenhooker, which is the sentence that I'm saying, is that the movie is very heavily set in New Jersey, right?
Yeah.
And they're in like Hohokus, which is like way out by like Paramus. It's not like right by the bridges or anything.
Sure.
And she escapes from his lab, which is in his garage, and is immediately on a subway in Manhattan. That's an hour journey. Yeah. You have to change bus twice to make that journey.
In 1990, I bet it was even harder.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but she makes it.
She does. She makes it.
And if you want to talk about continuity, she's finding it a lot harder to walk when she gets to Manhattan than she was when she left the house. So maybe she did walk for fucking hours to get there.
Yeah, maybe. The stuff on the subway train, I think, is really good.
Yeah, it looks fucking great. It looks really real. It looks like Warriors.
Yeah, well, they like rented a disused subway car from like the MTA graveyard, which is in New Jersey.
Brilliant.
And basically filled it with extras and had people standing outside it, just like shaking it.
That's superb. If you're making a low to no budget comedy horror in or around New Jersey, you're featuring a subway car because that resource is there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it looks amazing. I think this film looks great. I've got a question for you, Sam, actually, about the way the film looks. Do you think that it's visibly sort of disjointed at all?
How do you mean in terms of the edit?
No, so basically, Frank Henenlotter hired a cinematographer, Robert Baldwin, and they did not get on at all. And they would argue about how every scene looked, how it was lit, camera placement, to the point where Frank Henenlotter just fired him and was like, fuck it, I'll shoot the rest of the film myself.
Huh.
And I know that. And so I'm looking for it when I'm watching the movie. And there are some scenes where the lighting is amazing, and there are some scenes where the lighting isn't amazing, but I can't tell which is which. And I also can't tell if it's just the lighting is amazing in, like, say, the lab scenes, because you've got all these sort of intense blue and green and red lights, like a fucking Argento movie. But I do think that the cinematographer that he hired, this Robert Baldwin, did shoot those scenes. But yeah, I don't think that you can tell that like two people shot it. Is basically.
I wouldn't have been able to tell that unless you told me, but I do think there's some pretty gross internal lighting, like in rooms, especially in the house early in the movie. I don't think that looks particularly pleasing. And there's some camera movements there that made me think, oh no, it's going to be brain dead. So, definitely some stuff that felt a little bit inconsistent, but I just thought that was like, we're banging through this, guys, quick, set it up, shoot it, next. So I wouldn't have known if you hadn't told me. I do find a lot of it pretty gross to look at, and not in like the hooker scene in The Burning gross, just weird kind of washed out, strange 90s palette.
Yeah,
but it's just personal taste, I think.
It does have a bit of a sort of a grimy, low budget look to it, and like you say, not in the way that you would maybe want. Just sort of like, this is the film stock that was affordable in when they were making this movie or whatever. So it's sort of, when you combine that with budget lighting, it doesn't necessarily give you fucking Goodfellas or whatever.
Yeah, it just looks flat and not particularly exciting. But for the record, that fucking hooker scene in The Burning still sucks. Still greases me out big time.
How do you feel about... So when Jeffrey is initially trawling for hookers, before he meets all of the girls, all of Zorro's girls, how do you feel about the fact that those originally are real hookers that they just sort of filmed driving past? They drove past them in a van with the door open so that they could film them. And then they went back to do like another take, and they'd been spotted and all the hookers hid, so they couldn't film them.
Right. How do I feel? I feel, A, sad for the state of modern prostitution, because that really was a golden age. B, very surprised. C, happy that you told me that. That's a really fun fact.
Yeah.
That's great.
Aesthetically, there is very little visible difference between the real sex workers that you see in that shot, in those shots, and Zorro's girls.
Yeah. I mean, that's some masterful costume work and great casting, because you've shown me absolutely no difference between the real deal and the movie ladies.
Yeah. How do you feel about Zorro?
I'm gonna flip this around and ask you a question.
Okay.
Is the actor portraying Zorro giving us the worst performance we've seen from a movie actor in the duration of the Final Transmission podcast?
No.
Side question, what is the worst performance we've seen on the Final Transmission podcast if it's not Zorro?
I think Zorro is great. I don't know what the worst performance we've seen is, but I think Zorro is good fun. Good value.
Again, I never thought I would say this, but he is the loose wheel on the Frankenhooker caboose. He's the only thing in the whole movie that I thought was pretty unforgivable. I just thought he wasn't an actor, and it was immediately obvious.
So I think maybe the worst performance in this movie is, what's his name? Is it David Lippman, the guy that like explodes? The John, the guy who gets his head ripped off. He's
bad, but he's overacting bad. So he understands what acting is. I think the guy playing Zorro isn't an actor.
Well, no, he's not. He was in 2 movies, this and Brain Damage.
Yeah, he's the only like proper weak link as far as I'm concerned. He's just a hunk, and he doesn't do his lines very well. That's all I've got to say. I sound so much like Ben Small.
Don't want to cast aspersions on this guy that I've never met.
Right.
But he is very good at personifying a coked out hunky man.
Yeah. Joseph Gonzalez we're talking about, by the way, people.
Yeah. And I think maybe that much isn't acting.
But unfortunately the dialogue is, and that's where it all falls apart. Yeah. I thought for a minute I don't know what you call the guy in the whorehouse who works at the little window. I don't know what you call that guy. The receptionist? I don't know. I thought we were getting Lloyd Kaufman for a minute there, but obviously it wasn't.
No Lloyd Kaufman, but one of the guys in the scene when Jeffrey is looking for Elizabeth after she's gone rogue, before he talks to the guy that looks like Rutger Hauer.
Yeah.
The muscly guy who's like lighting a cigarette. That is the guy that played the Toxic Avenger in the first Toxic Avenger movie.
Superb. What such lore. This movie is dialed in. Circuit City. Love it.
I think maybe he was just around.
Yeah.
Sad that we didn't get.
He was probably fucking picking up hookers.
Yeah. Sad that we didn't get like Schneiser, that guy from Street Trash.
I think you say Rob Schneider. So I'm really sad we didn't get Rob Schneider.
Rob Schneider would have been too young at this point.
Yeah. Do you think, and again, sorry if it's a boring question, but do you think this movie would have been improved if, no, your answer's going to be no, if Jeffrey was played by Michael J. Fox?
No.
No?
I think that James Lawrence is perfect for Jeffrey.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Because, like, he already is very similar to Andrew McCarthy.
Who's Andrew McCarthy?
He's in Mannequin and Weekend at Bernie's.
Oh, yeah.
And he's one of those like Brat Pack guys, isn't he? Was he in St. Elmo's Fire?
Orange is the New Black.
I haven't watched Orange is the New Black.
Pretty in Pink.
Yeah, Pretty in Pink. He's the love interest. And so like they already look and have quite a similar demeanor.
True.
Like the fact that you already get like a sort of Brat Pack adjacent guy, I don't think Michael J. Fox would bring anything better to it. Maybe if it was Eric Stoltz.
Who's Eric Stoltz?
Eric Stoltz was the guy that was meant to play Marty McFly. They shot like 60% of the movie.
Fucking guy. No, he's in the bin, and he always will be.
No, he's great in Pulp Fiction. He's great in The Butterfly Effect. He's
so maligned. Can you imagine being the guy that nearly ruined Back to the Future? Oh God, how do you have a career after that?
It's so funny because like he looks a little bit like Michael J. Fox. They have such a similar look.
Yeah, there's something there, but I hate it. James Lawrence for me is Parallel Universe Kiefer Sutherland, and I really struggle to unsee it. So maybe Kiefer was his stunt double.
Well, I mean, we've talked about this before, but I love seeing old New York.
Yeah, I like old movie New York for sure.
Especially like the old movie New York that we get in the movies that I like, where it's like the seedy, gross bits of it. Like, I would love to go there.
Yeah.
But obviously I can't because I went to Times Square and I just had a panic attack because there was too many people and too many Disney shops.
Too many Disney shops. One. So, yeah, I hear you. It's not laid out extensively in this movie, but what you do see feels pretty legit, looks pretty legit, and gives you that real old-timey Grease.
Yeah. It just, like, even there's a, like, the hotel motel thing that they go to where he takes the hookers. It's called the Sultry Arms, which I think is A, funny, B, don't know if that's a real place or not. Could be.
It absolutely could be. It ties in really nicely with the piece of dialogue. This ain't your arm. Where'd you get this arm?
It's a good film, Sam. It's good.
It's, like you said at the beginning, it's a film. And really, that's all we can ask of it. You're not allowed to ask more of a movie called Frankenhooker than that it just be a movie.
Yeah. I think, like, I also really enjoy the fact that it tries to do some pseudoscience.
Yeah, he definitely says at one point E equals MC squared, and at one point divided by pi, which I think is fucking brilliant.
Yeah, like the opening, like the credits when he's like, I mean, it's meant to be him, is like drawing on the body on like
just dot to dot on a fucking. What even is it?
I don't know, but it's too big for her head, and that's funny.
Hilarious, yeah.
And just like very detailed electrodes and things going everywhere, which are definitely not in the final product. He doesn't even sew them together. He uses like a special glue and then welds them.
Yes. And when he's just mumbling like, where am I going to get the voltage? Like, what are you talking about? It's great.
Like these legs are slightly too long. I'm going to need more volts.
More volts for longer legs. Yeah, I absolutely love the unflinching approach to the scientific ridiculousness. It's fucking hilarious. It's great. Really good.
Really
I think
funny.
I like the full circle ending as well. We got to talk about the ending.
Yeah, well,
very fun that he ends up having his head put on a woman's body.
I mean, it has to happen like that because the stuff only works on women.
Yeah, the pseudoscience of how the estrogen ruins it, and he can only have his head put on a woman's body. It can't go back on his, can't go on Zorro's. Has to be a woman.
When this film came out, some people suggested that this film was misogynistic, right? And I think that this ending says no, it's not.
I knew you were gonna go there.
I mean, like low-key, yeah, the worst thing that could happen to you is that you become a woman. Like, okay. But the worst thing that can happen to a person who is so selfish that is trying to that kills people so he can make his girlfriend perfect using their parts. Like it's poetry, right?
It's beautiful. beautiful poetry. I don't think for a second that the message that's being telegraphed by the end scene of this movie is the worst thing that can happen to you is you become a woman. I just think he had his fucking head macheted off and was quite surprised to open his eyes and find that his head was now on a woman's body.
Yeah.
As emphasized by the lines, "What are these boobs? Where's my Johnson?" Superb. Okay, the guy is not misogynistic. He's just surprised.
Yeah. There is some fun social commentary in this.
Yeah?
Yeah. Particularly around the use of drugs, I think, is
Right.
amusing to me. The scene when they're partying in the hotel.
Yeah.
And the song that's playing is like...
The music in this film.
Safe sex is for
grief.
wimps.
Yes.
Like, say yes to drugs.
Yeah, say yes to drugs is banging, yeah.
It's so funny.
It is really funny. And I think, so the only bit that I don't really understand, because he loves his girlfriend, right? When she dies, he's madly in love with her. Why does he then, it's quite funny, again, like another layer of humor, that she dies and he doesn't try and like recreate her as she was. He sort of like slyly takes the opportunity to just give her gigantic honkers and just go all out. Like, I find that really funny and very indicative of what, you know, a lot of sleazy men would do. Like, given the opportunity to rebuild your destroyed girlfriend, would you augment her breasts? Yes or no? You have to be honest. Like, it's grim, but it's funny.
Okay, so I'm asking you that exact question, Sam.
Never in a million years, Jamie. I don't even know how to fucking build a lawnmower.
Well, the science is laid out for you pretty clearly in the text Frankenhooker.
Yeah, maybe if it ever happens in future, I'll be more prepared. What's doubly interesting about this movie, not just that it exists and that it's great and that it does exactly what it says on the tin, but again, no sequel, right?
Yeah. How do you sequelize? How do you sequelize Frankenhooker? It's Frankenschindler, right? That's.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't deserve a sequel if we're honest. It exists in a nice little bubble. And that's enough. Where do you put this movie in terms of how you watch it? Because I know that we have very different movie viewing habits. Is this a Halloween movie, a background movie, a movie that you could just listen to the audio of? Is it one you have to pay loads of attention to? Where does it fall in the Jamie spectrum of weird ways to watch movies?
I think, so I watched this...
Wow, weird ways to watch movies. 4 W's. That's almost like...
Movies is got an M, Sam.
I know how to spell.
Made maze to watch movies.
Made maze to watch movies. It's almost like hold on to your knowledge of equal rights. Hooker. The charity. Sorry, carry on.
What was the question? Oh, how do I watch it?
Yeah.
So I watch this film semi-regularly, maybe once a year, once every 2 years.
Right.
It's a sit down and watch for me. I think it's so fun. I don't think there are any lulls.
Right.
I think it's I'm on board with James Lawrence. I am dialed in. I think he's really funny. So I'm in.
Yeah, that's the trick, isn't it? Like you said at the top, if you buy in on James Lawrence, that's half the battle. If you love silly, goofy, absolute nonsense movies where the jokes kind of outweigh the horror, then you're 3/4 of the way there. If you like having severed boobs fly at your face for about 20 minutes, if you like mannequin stuff with fireworks and smoke bombs, you've won. You've really hit the jackpot here.
Yeah. When he's like trying to put her back together and he just has a big like smorgasbord of like piled up severed boobs.
Yeah.
They didn't explode off like that. Let's be honest with ourselves.
What, in perfect little like cream cake shapes? Yeah, probably not. The body parts are awful. It was so really hard to fucking watch that. But I love, again, like, not to take away from the fact this movie is quite good at foreshadowing and telling you that something's going to happen in a certain way. When he piles all the body parts into the old, lay down refrigerator full of all the purple goo, you know that something's going to go fucking wrong there.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, they're out the way now, move on. You know they're going to mutate into horrible hooker monsters and go crawling around on the floor. It's coming.
Yeah, I think like it wouldn't be a Frank Henenlotter movie if you didn't have a little gribbly weird guy like crawling around. Like that's the trademark.
And it's quite cool that it's, a silly putty monster mash of hooker parts. I think that's really fun.
The way that they're puppeteered is really bad and fun.
Yeah, like 1 point of articulation per mound of flesh, and one of them is just spinning on a pivot. It's so shit.
Like the big mashup one that, like, you know, has a big snog with Zorro. Yeah.
Again, hold on. So Zorro gets bonked in the head, and we hear an actual noise, and then he falls down and lands with his lips on a hooker mutant. That's unforgivable. But for some reason, we're laughing.
It's funny. It's why.
Yeah.
And like they drag him into the refrigerator, the freezer, and also don't forget the crack.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny, Sam.
And it works together. Again, the ending of the movie picks up pace. You're not sort of sitting there going, oh, fucking hell, this is really dragging. There's no big, horrible, boring boss fight. It's punctuated quite nicely with lots of little peaks. And we get a massive payoff at the end.
Yeah. This film was co-written by Bob Martin, who was the editor of Fangoria for a long time.
Yeah, that's a really nice little linkage.
Yeah. Bob Martin was a good guy. We would communicate occasionally.
Really?
And yeah, he was a lovely man. He died in 2020, COVID.
Wow. Did you write letters then, or?
We would chat. I think we met in a forum, and he contacted me after the UK magazine Gorezone threatened to sue me.
Right. Hold on.
For writing a blog post about how poorly sub-edited it was and how it focused massively on only sort of the glamour element of horror movies and like actors and stuff, and didn't focus anything on the interesting stuff like filmmaking. And like,
well, you can sue people for just having cool opinions.
Well, they didn't sue me, but
right.
It meant that my name got out there to quite a lot of people. Like fucking Roger Ebert was tweeting about me. And,
Jesus Christ.
And yeah, Uncle Bob got in touch, and we would, periodically communicate every couple of years or so.
Nice. I thought you were going to say that like he just barred you from the forum or something.
Well, so they had a fake me on the forum that was saying all this horrible shit.
Right.
And I contacted them and was like, I joined the forum to be like, hey, this guy's not me. And they banned me and deleted my posts and let the other guy carry on saying all this horrible shit. So the calls were coming from inside the house. It was all just designed to make me look bad. It was a real fucking...
Brilliant. Sounds like a complete fucking mess. So you were what, like 7 or 8 years old when this was happening?
No. So this was, I think I was 25. It was probably around the time that we first met.
Right. Nice.
Yeah.
That's why you were so distant and always on your laptop and embroiled in controversy. I didn't know what you were going through at the time.
It was a nightmare. It was really rough. I was actually quite freaked out.
I'd be bummed.
But it was cool because, like I say, people knew my name and got me a couple of like writing jobs.
Yeah.
A bunch of people like sent me their magazine and was like, "Hey,
slag this off."
Yeah, pretty much.
Brilliant.
It was cool, but it was it was scary.
Yeah. It's a shame all these people are dead now. They could fucking tweet about the podcast.
Yeah.
So is that to say that this movie has a little Fangoria endorsement, or is this before he was doing that?
No, it was way after. So he was editor like early 80s to I want to say 88.
That's a pretty ringing endorsement then for him to be involved even in a small way with the movie.
Yeah, well, he's a big like exploitation hound,
and
obviously would have hooked up with Frank Henenlotter after or even around the making of Basket Case.
Yeah.
So I think like especially in the 80s, the community around this sort of stuff was quite small. So if you had a name like you were making movies like Basket Case, or you were the editor of like an upstart horror magazine that was trying to do something different to like Famous Monsters or whatever, then you would obviously find each other.
Sure.
And I think that's sort of lovely.
Yeah, I like that. That's pretty unique to this little corner of movie making, and it sort of speaks to a scene, doesn't it? It sort of feels like doesn't sound or feel cliquey. It feels like something with a lot of freedom of expression, a lot of fun, and a lot of drive to do something different that bucks the mainstream, you know?
Yeah, and like when you combine that with the fact that there's people in this that were in trauma movies and people in this who are in street trash, and like obviously they all filmed around the same place at around the same time, so like it does sort of weave things together a little bit. Obviously, this isn't a trauma movie. It has, I would say, feels sort of congruent with trauma movies.
Yeah, definite trauma notes. Maybe less hysterical and less technicolor and almost like a sort of downbeat cousin.
Yeah, like and less on the nose social commentary and a bit more not nuanced, but like a bit just different. And the same with Street Trash. Like that feels trauma adjacent. It feels Frankenhooker adjacent, but they don't feel like the same thing. But like the idea that like there are these disparate groups of freaks out there doing their thing. It's the same as like, you know, bands in a punk scene. Like Throwing Stuff, my band don't sound very much like Leagues Apart, but like we're all part of the same scene. We're all doing similar things to similar people.
Okay. Here's a question. Have you seen a little movie called Doom Asylum?
I haven't seen Doom Asylum.
Nor have I. It came up in the recommended movie list when I finished watching this, and it has Patty Mullen in it.
Okay.
It looks like it's ripe for us because it is rated R. It's 1987, has 4.6 on IMDb, and looks fucking shit. So I've stopped looking at it completely because I'm guessing maybe we'll watch it.
I think that sounds like a good idea. Oh, it's directed by Richard Friedman. He directed Phantom of the Mall, which is a pretty bad slasher that has Pauly Shore in it.
There are no bad slashers with Pauly Shore in them.
Well, okay.
Plus, the title, dude, Doom Asylum?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Sam, why don't we take a break, come back, and do our final thoughts?
You're so full of good ideas. Let's do exactly that.
Come on, man. Does that thing even work? No. There's nothing out there. It's just dead air.
I'm back. You?
I'm back, Sam. And one thing that I want to tell our listeners to do is follow us on social media. TikTok and Instagram at FT Horror Show. We post all kinds of things, podcast related. You can see stuff there. Go there and...
Addendum. Definitely worth doing. Jamie does it all and he's really good at it. You won't hear from me. You're safe. You should, however, tell all your friends about FT Horror Show at fthorrorshow.net/Bush Internet TV. Because if you don't tell people, they won't know.
Yeah. I think you should tell people. That's what I think.
Yep. And rate and review too. That's obvious, right? If you haven't done that already, fucking jackass, do it now.
If you don't do that, any of that, we'll send Uncle Larry around and
he's gonna rim you.
He'll rustle your jimmies.
Yep.
It'll start off pleasant, but it won't end up pleasant.
It's not going to end well for you, my friend.
Yeah.
As always, Final Transmission threatening you at the end of the podcast so that you turn it off before we rate the movie.
And don't forget, we are thoroughly endorsed by Red Scare Industries. Everything we say is thoroughly backed by them.
Red Scare approved.
Yeah.
Oh boy, we're in so much trouble. So Frankenhooker, why don't you, Jamie Carruthers, give us a little zip, little nip and tuck, and a rating of some kind.
Okay, well, I mean, again, I'm not here to be objective. Frankenhooker is a movie that I've loved for a long time. I find it very funny. I think there's very little in Frankenhooker that I don't enjoy. I think the production value, I think the production design in the lab scenes especially looks amazing. It looks like a real lab that someone has built in their garage.
Okay.
Like it's not like...
For a minute there, I was like, holy shit, Jamie's never seen a lab.
It's not like, do you know, is it The Man with Two Brains where he's got like the insane castle and then inside it's an apartment? Or is it the other way around? Is it like an apartment building and inside it's like a castle?
I think it's that way around.
Yeah, it's not like that kind of production design where it's like, haha, look at this incongruous thing. It's like, this character is a real freelance surgeon or whatever. And what do they call it? A freelance biotechnician.
Is that what he calls himself?
Yeah.
And also an electrical engineer.
Yeah. Well, he works for New Jersey Electric and Power or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
It's where he steals all the parts from for his lab. So like it looks like a lab that you would cobble together, and it's because they basically went to a power plant and were like, "You got any garbage?" And they were like, "Yeah, help yourselves." And so they
it looks like a junkyard lit like a lab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it looks so good. Like it's such good value. And like, I mean, we've said it, but I love seeing old New York. I would absolutely get stabbed and dive an overdose just to go there. It's funny, and James Lawrence is great, and it's Frankenhooker. It's everything you want from a movie called Frankenhooker, I think.
You just stole my whole summary. But the whist in your eyes when you talk about getting stabbed in old New York, it's truly wonderful to witness.
Yeah. I give this literally one big check mark on the butt. It's huge. Perfect.
That's a good rating. Yeah, a tricky one. I think, much like you, I enjoyed Frankenhooker. So with that in mind, and with, basically the same kind of feelings as you, I find it hard to rate because it's not a good film. It's a terrible film. But the joy of it is in leaning so hard into how terrible everything is.
Absolutely.
And making magic and wonder and whimsy out of that, which is something I have an enormous amount of respect for and I actually find very entertaining. So I'm going to give Frankenhooker 15 code blue nipples out of 25 because I could never say that it was a great film, but what I can say is that it's a great time.
Yeah. I think the nipples are purple.
What did I say?
Code blue.
I was trying to make a TSOL joke.
Well, I got it, but...
Also, side note, the purple nipples look amazing.
They're so funny. They shot her having purple pubic hair, but they thought it was too graphic and cut it out.
Too graphic for Frankenhooker. Nope.
There was like loads more nudity that they cut out because they thought the nudity was overshadowing the jokes.
That's so fucking funny because there's so much nudity in this. It's just boobs swanging left and right all over the place.
Yeah. Well, there was meant to be a lot more full frontal.
Yeah, it qualifies as a romp, definitely. And I just
obviously.
think... obviously. I think if you're cracking open the VHS case of Frankenhooker and you've seen the front, right? You've seen the typography, you've seen the picture, you've seen the Bill Murray endorsement, you've maybe read the back, you've seen the section it was in the video shop.
You've seen the tagline, "A terrifying tale of sluts and bolts."
Yeah, you have either already put it back or you got really excited and put it on. And if you're in that latter camp, you're with us right now. And that's all we need, right? Yeah. That's the fucking vibe.
Nobody looks at this and goes, "I'm going to really enjoy this," and then doesn't.
No. If anything, I think I looked at this and thought, this is going to be fucking great. And I was ever so slightly off fucking great and was closer to, I got overexcited, but it's still pretty fun.
Like, I watched it with Kaz, who did not want to watch it at all. And she was like, do I have permission to tap out if this is too horrible or whatever, too gross for me? And I was like, yes. And I could see her trying to tap out, but the movie was too magnetic for her to actually tap out. I could see her...
I was going to say, of course you said yes to that because you knew it wasn't going to be. It's not gory.
Yeah. Well, it's more the sex and the unnecessary nudity or the gratuity or whatever. But like, and the fact that, he feeds a load of super crack to exploding hookers.
Yeah. There's a ton of really good variants on the cover art as well. I know I'm obsessed with this, but the Japanese cover is absolutely brilliant. The original British release cover's fucking great fun as well. There's some really crap versions that have the tagline, "It's a stitch," which I think is unforgivable. When you've got a fucking terrifying tale of sluts and bolts, when that's your, like, if you're A/B testing those two, I think I know which one won out. Like, that's a massive winner.
The Arrow Blu-ray box has the tagline, "Winners don't smoke super crack." Which
so good. That is such a swing for the fences of a tagline.
Like,
that's good.
It's sort of meaningless.
Yeah.
But
I really enjoyed the I don't know what distribution company or whatever it is, the opening thing where it says like SDC releases or something, that opening screen. It's like a blue screen and it has I think it was like a palm tree and the Empire State Building and a sun and a lightning bolt. Like, it was like, we're everything. It created a really nice opening for the movie, and it just felt... The other thing, I just have to say this before we stop, this fucking movie does not feel like it was made in 1990 to me. 1981 maybe. Like, it is not a 90s movie in my mind at all. It feels so old.
I think I'm on record of saying, like, a decade doesn't start in the year that it is. Like, you're too busy, you're too hung up, especially when you're making a movie. Like this would have shot in 88, 89, maybe bled into 90 a little bit. And I think, like, obviously New York has changed so much so fast that it just sort of feels like a relic to see New York looking like this. And so you sort of assume that it's much, much older, and it looks like a high budget, low budget movie.
Yeah.
It's about as much money as you could give to a movie in this time period and still call it low budget.
It's about as much money as you could give to a movie when the sole pitch is Frankenhooker.
Yeah.
I think if you don't want to watch this movie for some reason, or you don't have 1 hour and 25 minutes to spare, watch the trailer, because the trailer is the movie. It turns out it's all the best bits. It's not the jokes, but it's all the best visuals. I watched the trailer after the movie as always, and it's fucking good. It's really stitched together well. So yeah, enjoy.
Yeah, Frankenhooker is better than the sum of her parts.
Very nice. Look at you still writing that blog. I'm going to go ahead and say thank you, Frankenhooker, for a great night. Good times.
Worth every penny.